It's like, y'all letting PLIES educate y'all motherfuckers on some shit. Y'all letting PLIES come out the woodwork and be like, yo.
Welcome to the Interho Uprising, the podcast about sex, love, and dating from the perspective of me, Sam, one black, non-monogamous, pansexual feminist hoe who lives in New York City, whose pronouns are she, her, they, and them, and who once again looks like a character from Wayne's World.
You're back. Look at that.
Just call me Wayne up in here. Just kidding.
This is just the look moving forward, and I fuck with it.
Look like this. Nah, hopefully not.
Until you won't.
Exactly.
And there's me, Rodeka, a fat black solo polyamorous existentialist femme whose life is a series of coincidences that somehow landed her here. And my pronouns are she and they.
Nice. On this episode, we're talking about why are people comparing HIV positive folks to unvaccinated folks? Why I say vaccinated like that?
Unvaccinated.
I'm from Michigan or wherever they talk like Minnesota. I'll try that again. On today's episode, we're talking about why people are comparing HIV positive folks to folks unvaccinated against COVID-19. And surprisingly, we're talking about what the rapper PLIES has to say about all of that. Plus, for the past 3 decades, various HIV vaccines have been in development. So why don't we have an HIV vaccine yet? What are some contenders? What's in the running? What's not in the running? Who has failed? All that and much more coming up.
And if you would like to follow along with the conversation had in this podcast on social media, you could do so by using the hashtag Interho Uprising so we can see it, and the hashtag PodIn so other people can see it. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you could do so at Interho Uprising without the G on Twitter, Interho Uprising on Instagram and Facebook, and you can head to interhouprising.com to pay a hoe or to cop some merch.
Yes, y'all, and you don't stop. All right, so we're starting this episode off with one of my fave segments. It's called Fuck Is This? Fuck Is This is a moment to discuss, rant about, or laugh at the nonsense in the realm of sex, love, and dating as we see it in the world and most often on the interwebs. So let's open up Twitter. I do a little share screen. And we've got a tweet from none other than the rapper PLIES of I Want a Bitch Who Pussy Smell Like Water fame. Yeah. And so you might be hearing this a little bit. This might be a dated story at this point, but I think the concept still applies. But we did a double recording this week, so we need to celebrate Halloween. I'm sorry.
Yes. I'm sorry. We take this very seriously. We're doing this because we need to prioritize Halloween. I'm sorry.
We needed that weekend. But on October 20th, 2021, PLIES tweeted, people say the envy. Wait, I'm sorry. It's the fact that every word is capitalized.
Yes.
What
you have to do. Does it automatically?
It does. And I'm always a little bit embarrassed because I'm like, people think my grammar is all fucked, but it's because I'm typing with a German keyboard. But yes, he capitalized everything. People say the NBA let Magic play with HIV. You can't contract HIV from shaking hands, hugging, coughing, and running up and down the court. COVID, you can. HIV is transmitted through blood emoji. That's how you get HIV, through blood emoji.
Drip.
You get it from Young Thug's favorite fucking emoji. No, but he meant blood. HIV is transmitted through blood. Or needle emoji unscreened, birth and unprotected sex. If players were having babies, sex, or sharing needles, you had a point, but you didn't have a point. So PLIES really just put everybody in their place. But let's talk a little bit about the context behind this. So as I said, PLIES is a rapper who looks like Kirk Franklin.
He does.
And made a song called I Want a Bitch Who Pussy Smell Like Water. And those are like my top things about PLIES. So he is referring to or responding to this notion that many people have set forth, stating that because Magic Johnson played in the NBA, it's all bi people. I would watch that. because Magic Johnson played in the NBA whilst being HIV positive, that folks who do not have the COVID vaccine should also be able to play. Most notably, Congressperson Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has said this. She tweeted, "The fascist NBA won't let Kyrie Irving play for refusing a vaccine, but yet they still let Magic Johnson play with HIV." So she tweeted that sometime in like late October. So yeah, that sounds like
NBA
a
is
private.
super fast.
That sounds like super fast NBA. That sounds like fact to me. No, yeah. So that reminds me of the whole like my free speech on Facebook, and it's like, no, Facebook is a private company. It's not how that works. They're not a government. Does not apply. Does not fucking apply. Fuck Facebook though. Okay. Do you have any thoughts about this before I share my thoughts?
Immediately, and I'm sure we share the same sentiment. It's like, y'all letting PLIES educate y'all motherfuckers on some shit. Y'all letting PLIES come out the woodwork and be like, yo, y'all dumb. Like
with the to be fair, well, actually, a lot of people pointed out, and I didn't actually look in this. I just assumed that they would not lie. PLIES was a RN. PLIES was a registered nurse.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he knows.
Okay.
But then also there are many nurses who are like, I'm not taking that fucking vaccine. I don't know where the fuck that shit has been, even though you can read papers about it. But I guess
flies.
Oh God, I sound like my mom now. You know that rapper Flies, Sammy? PLIES is I don't even remember what the fuck I was gonna say. I'm sorry. I was saying, oh, he's reading the research. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And like, you know, he has the education to back it up. So that's also really cool because like I know that what he's saying is sound, but it's nice that like people looked into it and said, look, I don't care if you, because people will listen to rappers when it's on like the worst type of information. But I'm sure people are like, well, PLIES doesn't know anything. So I'm glad that he also has some shit backing that up. Like, yeah, no, I come from a place where I know this shit. It was nice. It was refreshing for someone to say something that wasn't like, oh, my cousin took the vaccine and his balls, you know, like it's just nice.
Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend's balls, the infamous. Okay, this is how quickly you have to retract statements. I don't think it is confirmed that PLIES.
No, he's not.
I hate the internet.
Meanwhile, I'm going like, yeah.
The one
like,
time,
you know what? This is
I wanted to
fucking look it up.
Believe in you niggas, okay? The one time I wanted to believe in y'all. I don't know if this is true or not.
Why would someone make that up?
Okay.
Why is someone making that up?
Rapper's career as a nurse explained, and this is from another website that I don't even know. So everything is nothing. A BuzzFeed report from 2013 states that PLIES got his bachelor in nursing and worked as an RN before turning to music. A QA page from 4noob.com sees a fan claiming they heard on the radio that PLIES graduated from a 4-year college in Miami with a degree in nursing. However, it is important to note that none of these reports are confirmed. This information is not backed by legitimate sources or confirmed by PLIES himself. Hence, whether PLIES was a registered nurse or not remains an unanswered question.
Oh no. Where do these things come from?
That's why I hate misinformation, because it's just like, why would you even lie about that?
Like something that like legitimately is someone sitting in their room going like, yeah, that's the one, and you just say it. Where'd you pull that from? That has to be true. I don't care. It's one of those things that it's just like, I want it to be true because I don't want it to not be something. I don't want it to be something that somebody in their basement made up for some reason to just shake up shit. Like when Kanye, and there was this rumor that Kanye and Jeffree Star were like in an affair, and like someone like literally just went on TikTok and said that, and everyone believed them. And afterwards she was like, I was lying the whole time. I just wanted to get some fame. And it's just like, people do shit like that. So you have to know, like, anything could be anything. Oh my God,
anything could be anything. So I went back to the BuzzFeed article from 2013. It's number 3 on the list of rappers who had surprising day jobs. PLIES, the Please Excuse My Hand star, got his bachelor's in nursing and worked as a registered nurse. Apparently, he made his patients uncomfortable when he donned heavy, expensive jewelry. And then it links out to something, but that link doesn't exist anymore.
That feels, see, now it made it feel less real.
He's just like, He's smacking people in the face with his chain when he's trying to do
like
their
what?
IV drip and shit.
No.
Like, I don't think you
Especially
wear
since
chains.
before he was a rapper. So like he's just wearing these chains. Like that's just his
How did he
personality.
afford it?
That's just a personality. Now I don't believe it. I don't know. I'm tired already. Like this is upsetting.
Man. Yeah. Sorry about that. Looks like PLIES may or may not be a nurse. You have to ask PLIES.
One or the other. Speak on it, PLIES. Let us know.
Give us more truth, King. Give us more truth. All right. Yeah. So PLIES, despite maybe not being a nurse, PLIES' scientific take on the situation is factually sound. And I'm like good on PLIES for like actually spreading correct information about both of these viruses on the internet, especially like given your platform. I think anybody with a platform should be doing responsible things with their platforms. So thank you for doing that, PLIES. I personally just find this take really sad. I think like coming from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who like has touted misinformation specifically regarding coronavirus in the past and stuff like that. I'm not like surprised to see or hear her spreading such things. And I think that aligns with the larger like anti-government for the wrong reason thing that a lot of conservatives in this country are doing anyway. But what makes me really sad is when like people who are like of marginalized communities like buying into that sort of rhetoric with this vaccine mistrust that I think is like very misguided. So all that to say, I'm not going to get into the COVID vaccine specifically at all in this episode, but if you're looking for more information about it from a culturally sensitive and scientifically sound standpoint, I recommend you listen to an In Those Genes episode called Vaccine Versus, which I produce, full disclosure. But yeah, if you'd like have more information about whether or not to take the vaccine, or you want to share that information with a loved one who's debating or whatever, I'll link that in the show notes. But on HIV specifically, or HIV, which I would say if I was British or Jamaican, that virus has ravaged the queer community.
You are Jamaican.
Yeah, but I wasn't born there, man.
Okay.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm sorry.
When do I speak patois at all? Thank you. Thank you for discussing my ancestral lineage. Shout out to my dad who was born there. Man. Anyway.
Continue.
Am I born there? Anyway, this is so silly. HIV, back to very fucking serious things, has ravaged the queer community, specifically Black queer communities, sex work community, and like the whole continent of Africa, legitimately, for decades. Like it's been like 40, 50 years. And it has been so difficult to develop an HIV vaccine, not rooting this in any like facts, but I think that's because of the communities that it affects. If it was affecting rich white people, then yeah, we would have like cleaned this shit up a long time ago. Look what we did with COVID. So like all of that is happening, and instead of being like, hey, that is a fucking outrage that this virus has been ravaging these communities for years and they need resources and how to like get this shit under control. Obviously, like there are more resources with like PrEP and stuff like that, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But like just the fact that this has been allowed to happen, like that is the outrage. That is the racist thing. That is homophobic. That is cis sexism because it affects trans people more, specifically trans women more. That is anti-sex work because it affects sex workers more. And niggas are just peddling in misinformation and flawed logic. Like it's not a fucking outrage that Magic Johnson got to play basketball because nothing happened. Like it was fine. Because that's not how HIV works. And this nigga fucking Kyrie Irving, if he gets to play basketball, he can get other people sick. Like, what is the actual outrage here? Like, what are people trying to do? There's just so much things to actually be outraged about, and people just choose to like make stuff up or believe in nothing, or it just bothers me. Like at first when COVID dropped, when it was like coming out or whatever, and people were like, man, they didn't talk about Ebola this much. First of all, I worked in news when the 2014 Ebola outbreak happened. Yes, the fuck we did talk about it. We talked about it a lot. We talked about it a fucking lot. And it was like, they didn't talk about it that much because it was affecting the African continent or whatever. Like, no, nigga. Ebola is fucking dangerous. People talked about it a lot. And the reason why COVID is not the same as Ebola is because it's like less transmissible or something like that. Like, you see how far COVID is spread.
Yeah.
And you see the fact that Ebola is typically contained.
Yeah.
And things like that. And it's like, that is like the reason why this is happening. But if you want to talk about fucking racism, let's talk about the fact that more Black people are likely to be frontline workers. And because of that, we're getting more sick from COVID right now. That's the outrage. It's happening right now. You can read in the news. You can go talk to your neighbor. You can see like your fucking family members who have died. That, like, when the outrage is right there and people make up fake outrage, it bothers me to no end. Because I just feel like we are fucked. This is my third week saying this on this podcast.
Third week? You say this every week, and that's okay.
Yeah, but that specific phrase.
Oh, that okay. Because we
like,
are
just
fucked. Yeah.
We are fucked. Because it's like, if we can't even like get together to fight against things that are actually happening, what?
But them imaginary threats, they be a thorn in people's sides. And
I was on Twitter just now. I saw these motherfuckers like protesting outside of the Barclays Center, talking about let Kyrie play.
No way.
Kyrie's up in here like fucking going to schools on Native American reservations, like not wearing his mask, all unvaccinated. Like, those are the people who are most at risk. You fuck, you rich fuck. Like, what is your problem here? You have access to all the information in the world, and you are just like you've been pulled out of conspiracy theories before. You've been pulled out of that flat earth shit before. And here you are back on your bullshit, being harmful and being dangerous. What is your problem?
Proudly too. And people are backing him up. It's his right to own his body. And I'm just like, oh Lord Jesus.
Yeah, it is your right to own your body. And it's also a part of public health for you to not get me sick. So if you don't want to take the vaccine, that is very fine. Yeah. Don't play a contact sport in a stadium with multiple people. It can't be both. It can't be both. And honestly, isn't that what he decided to do?
Yeah, he was very much like, I'm just not like, gonna play.
Yeah, so why are you protesting? Nobody's forcing him to get it.
Yeah. Literally no one is. It's not like they said, yo, you have to, like, people are frustrated, sure, but like maybe like people who are the owners of the basketball teams, like, damn, like my good player doesn't want to play, but it's not like, yo, you have to do it. It's just like, he's like, all right, I'm not gonna play. Yeah, and that's his choice.
Especially for a rich motherfucker like that. It's
he's like, I'm
okay. Good. Yeah, like he's really good. Like, I get the case more so when it's like people who are like working class, like actually like I am like existing off of minimum wage and shit like that. Like, that's another conversation to be had. But I do not feel bad for a millionaire who can't get people sick. All right, well, up next, we're talking about some real deal science, not that Marjorie Taylor Greene shit, okay? We're talking all about HIV and vaccinations. But first, Rodeka has a little bit to say.
Yeah. So are you ready to tell the truth? Or maybe drink instead. Either way, join me, Rodeka, for a game of Truth or Drink this coming Thursday, November 4th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, because we in New York out here. Truth or Drink is my favorite party game that asks hard-hitting questions to make you laugh, reminisce, and maybe even grow. If you're not a drinker, that's no problem. We don't pressure anybody here. It's your body, your choice. You're invited regardless, no matter how drunk or sober you want to be. The only thing you do need to do is be a member of our Patreon community. So visit patreon.com/Uprising, pledge as little as $2 a month, and don't miss out on this week's Truth or Drink session. You will also find our Patreon link in the show notes. Next week, another hoe will have more fun in store, and back to the show.
Ooh, every week the hoes have fun in store. You got to be a Patreon to enjoy the fun though. All right, let's get into our next segment. It is called Fuck It. And fuck it is our topic of the day, where we do a deep dive into a topic in the realm of sex, love, and or dating. Today we are talking about HIV and vaccines, specifically an HIV vaccine. So in the same vein of vaccine and HIV, like we were talking about with that PLIES shit, or that fly shit, we're going to spend the rest of the episode talking about HIV and vaccines. We'll be talking about what vaccines are in development, what vaccines have failed and why, are they safe, how promising are they, and much, much more. This is going to be a lot of science talk. So Rodeka is going to be, because I did all this research and Rodeka didn't do the research. Because
I'm the everyman.
Kyrie Irving up in
I was about to say, it's my choice. It's my choice.
My body, my choice.
But I'm the everyman on the show.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is like not talking about abortion, and their body, their choice. So that's interesting. But sips tea.
Sips tea.
Yeah. So whenever like shit don't make sense or whatever, hop in,
I'm
ask
here.
questions and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And all that being said, if you are listening and you catch something that doesn't quite make sense or catch something that sounds like misinformation or something like that, I am also a layman. And so feel free to write in to challenge this, because this is a little collaborative effort that we're doing here. But I'm going to cite all of my sources throughout this segment here. So let's talk about the state of affairs, right? So for the rest of the episode, we're specifically focusing on vaccines that are or have been in development for like around the past 5 years, because who cares about a vaccine that failed in the 1980s very much? But let's begin with the big picture state of affairs. So, and I didn't know this. I didn't actually know any of this stuff.
I was just about to say, I'm like,
I didn't know this.
I didn't know anything. Like the fact that you're like in the past 5 years, there's multiple vaccines. I'm like, look, let's find out.
Yeah. So more than 100 HIV. This is from an article in Nature, which I'll link in the show notes. All the articles I mentioned, I'll link in the show notes. So I don't have to keep saying that over and over again. But more than 100 HIV vaccines have been tested in people in the past 3 decades. There have been 100 efforts at this shit, but only one has demonstrated any kind of protection. And that's like demonstrated to the point where like the study was actually over. So most of the studies I'll be talking about aren't over. So keep that. But yeah, so in 2009, researchers announced that the results of a study conducted in Thailand showed that shortly after participants received an experimental vaccine, they were almost 60% less likely to become infected with HIV than those given a placebo. But the effects waned within a year. And by the end of the 3.5-year study, vaccinated individuals were only 31% less likely to become infected. So not an effective vaccine in the long run. Yeah. So let's talk about the ones that you might have been hearing about in the news lately and some of the ones that are just going on right now. So I heard about this one earlier this year and I was like, oh, hey, pretty cool. And I was like, oh, okay. So this one is funded by Johnson & Johnson. I'm going to talk about that for a little bit, and I'm going to read a little bit from an article called Johnson & Johnson HIV Vaccine Trial Fails Mid-Stage Study. That is an article in ABC and is written by Sunny Saltzman. So the trial, called Imbokudo, was co-sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the U.S. National Institutes of Health, or NIH, as you might be familiar with. It included more than 2,600 women living in 5 African countries where women and girls have a high risk of HIV infection. Now I'm going to skip.
Why did they pick just women? Do you know why? Was that for a reason?
I don't know why. I mean, I've heard like things about like misinformation as it pertains to HIV in some African countries where it's like, if I rape, content warning, but like the idea of virgin rape, like being able to cure one of HIV and stuff like that. So
oh wow, okay,
yeah, I'm assuming that they picked them because, well, in this other one that is also, that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, that is also funded by Johnson & Johnson, they more so focus on men and people assigned male at birth. So they might have been doing that concurrently in 2 different populations.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah. Back to, or now I'm going to skip to an NIH press release also about the same vaccine. An investigational HIV vaccine tested in the Imbokudo clinical trial conducted in sub-Saharan Africa posed no safety concerns, but did not provide sufficient protection against HIV infection. According to primary analysis of the study data, the phase 2B proof of concept study, which began in November 2017, enrolled, like I said, 2,637 women ages 18 to 35 from 5 countries. And the primary analysis was conducted 24 months after participants received their first vaccination. So these clinical trials take like years to see what the hell is going on. Back to this ABC article, the vaccine was safe, like mentioned in the NIH press release. Researchers said, but ultimately efficacy was only 25%, meaning that people who received the vaccine had a slightly smaller risk of developing HIV, but the difference was so slight that the result might be chalked up to random chance. The Johnson & Johnson HIV vaccine uses the same quote-unquote viral vector technology used in its current COVID-19 vaccine. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but you might know that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine technology is a different mechanism than the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine technologies. Those are mRNA vaccines, and I'm going to explain what that means later. And this one is a different technology that I'll explain right now.
Got it.
So scientists say the recent failure has no bearing on the technology itself, which has been used successfully for other viruses, including Ebola and SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. Rather, HIV itself is a unique virus. It evades the body's immune system, making it very difficult to create a vaccine that generates immunity against infection.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Despite the setback, the Imbokudo trial showed the vaccine was safe among people who received it, a hopeful sign. And Imbokudo means rock in the South African language isiZulu, referring to a proverb about women's strength and community. I thought that was
that's really nice.
Nice name for it.
Yeah.
A little bit more on the technology, right? And this is going to come up in the next vaccine that I talk about. So this is back to the NIH press release. The investigational vaccine tested in the Imbokudo study is based on a quote unquote mosaic immunogens. So that's vaccine components designed to induce immune responses against a wide variety of global HIV strains. Because as you know, or as you might not know, viruses do be mutating though. So there is multiple strains going around at a time. The vaccine candidate used a strain of common cold. So this is how this vaccine actually like worked technologically. The vaccine candidate used a strain of common cold virus, I won't read them, engineered to not cause illness to deliver 4 mosaic antigens to spur an immune response. Earlier research indicated the vaccine was both well tolerated and can induce an anti-HIV immune response. Imbokudo participants received 4 vaccinations during a 1-year period. This included 4 doses of the investigational quadrivalent vaccine. That means 4. The final 2 doses were administered together with doses of an HIV protein clade C GP140 and an adjuvant to boost immune responses. Participants were followed up for at least 2 years. The primary analysis occurred 1 year after the last study's participants' final vaccination. Study participants were offered pre-exposure prophylaxis medication, which is something that you take to prevent HIV infection. It's typically pretty effective during the clinical trial. And the women who acquired HIV infection, despite, the vaccine didn't work. So the people who got HIV during the process were directed to medical care and offered antiretroviral treatment, which is what folks who are HIV positive go on to prevent HIV turning into AIDS. And that's also pretty effective. HIV is a lot more manageable now than it was 20 years ago. Any thoughts about that so far?
I'm already learning so much. So I'm sitting here I didn't know, even the fact that they're linking it to the common cold virus and using a strain to try and combat it. I had no idea that was something that people did. I did not know there was a difference between the Johnson & Johnson shots and the other 2. Mm-hmm. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about the people who got it and they were at least they were given some type of care and they were given is that PrEP? Is that pre-exposure?
Yeah, so some people were offered PrEP and then afterwards they were offered antiretrovirals, which might be the same thing as PEP. I know PEP is what you take if you have been exposed or you think you have been exposed. So all the same sort of medical type of care.
Yeah. I'm just thinking I was going back to the one that was conducted in Thailand. Mm-hmm. It was in 2009. Are they still working with that, or is that just done? Because that seems like the only one that was promising. It's done after
it dropped to only 35% efficacy. I think they were closed it. Yeah. We need to work on something else.
Yeah. Just what is it? But it's a tricky case. It's not the same thing as COVID, which a lot of people were granted, obviously, there is differences in the demographics that are mainly affected by it. So a lot of the time, obviously everybody was hands on deck with COVID as opposed to HIV. Mm-hmm. It's nice to see that 100 tests were made, but I feel we could be breaking through any moment if we just put more time and effort into this.
And money.
Yeah, mainly money, that but I'm just I love hearing things and I'm just like absorbing the information. So like, this is crazy. Okay, well, this is wild. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say something about what you said about the fact that they're using the common cold virus. It just reminds me of like what people say a lot about the coronavirus vaccine, and like, I can't trust it. It's so new. And like, I encourage you to listen to that In Those Genes episode for folks who are listening at home who feel that way, because we like get deep into the science of that. But when it comes to like, it's so new, vaccine technology is like super old. Like, not super old, like it's not 1,000 years old or anything like that. Although, I mean, the concept of like introducing an antigen to boost an immune response is like something that communities have been doing for years now. But like, scientists were not just like, yo, let's like cook some shit up together. Oh, here's a coronavirus vaccine.
Yeah.
The coronavirus, both of them, the Johnson & Johnson technology and that mRNA technology used by the Pfizer and Moderna, is shit that has been in the works for like years and years and years now. It like, just because it wasn't applied to this specific virus doesn't mean that the technology wasn't being tested already. It's like, just because a fucking Tesla came out doesn't mean that there weren't a bunch of other electric cars before the Tesla.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Which is something that like, I will honestly say I was never like, oh, I don't trust it. I mean, I did. I have my skepticism because like, I want to know what's going to go in my body. But at the same time, like, I'm not thinking about, this is not something that just started because COVID started. It's something that started a long time ago, and we just applied it to this actual strain. But it's like, we're just using that and applying it to something else. And you know, I'll admit that I didn't know that, but I'm not wrong and strong. I'm very wrong, and like, I'm gonna wait and find out. And
yeah, like I just didn't know that.
Yeah, I just don't know it.
Know.
Like, it's like, I'll never claim that I do, and like, yeah, it's just like, I don't know it, and I'm learning too. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
To know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, well, that was one modern HIV vaccine contender, and it failed. All right, this next vaccine we're talking about is called Mosaico, and you might be on the right track for why it's called that, but we're going to talk about it. So there's another late-stage trial called Mosaico, which uses a slightly different vaccine approach and is being tested among men who have sex with men and transgender people in Europe and North America. So this is also funded by Johnson & Johnson. So I'm going to read a little bit more from an article in Nature called Mosaic HIV Vaccine is tested in thousands of people across the world, and it's written by Emiliano Rodriguez Mega. That's a cool last name.
Yeah.
Paraphrase a little bit. Mosaico is an experimental HIV vaccine that targets more strains of the virus than any other developed so far, and they started their late stage clinical trial in late 2019. I don't know if they used more strains of the virus than the first Johnson & Johnson one that I talked about, though, because I don't know which one started first, and this article was written after. But this one is called Mosaico for that same concept of the mosaic of different strains of viruses. So this study is sponsored by a consortium led by Janssen Vaccines and Prevention, part of Johnson & Johnson of New Brunswick, New Jersey. Shout out to New Jersey for the first time
ever.
And then everybody from New Jersey is like, oh, God.
What the fuck is that? These guys. Sorry.
Every state has their time on this podcast, okay?
Never
Every state has their time, Different boroughs, though.
Yeah.
Fuck Brooklyn, for example. What are you going to do about it? You going to fight me? Anyway,
we gonna throw some hands, bro. I don't know,
and I might get fucked up, but at least I'm punching back.
Going down Friday. I believe in you.
Exactly. This is bitch from Wayne's World. Okay, small trials of the Mosaic vaccine in people showed that it prompted an immune response, such as the production of antibodies against HIV. But starting in September, scientists will test it in thousands of people to assess whether the vaccine provides any protection against HIV infection. The phase 3 trial will test the vaccine in transgender individuals and in men who have sex with men across the Americas and Europe. Small laboratory tests of the Mosaico vaccine in people showed that it elicited strong immune responses for at least 2 years after researchers administered it. The responses seemed to be more durable than those observed in that Thai vaccine trial from
Wow. Okay.
2009, says Guido Silvestri, an AIDS researcher at Emory University in Atlanta. The latest Mosaico study will enroll 3,800 participants across 8 countries, including Argentina, Italy, Mexico, Poland, and the United States. Half of the participants will get 4 vaccine injections. Sorry. That's a big deal. Half of the participants will get 4 vaccine injections over the course of a year, and the other half will receive a placebo. The shots contained a disabled common cold virus, much like the first Johnson & Johnson one that we talked about, that carries synthetic versions of 3 HIV genes. Researchers built the genes based on sequences from HIV strains found in several regions of the world. And then as an added boost to help produce antibodies against HIV, the Mosaico team added 2 synthetic proteins based on proteins produced by HIV strains common in Africa, the Americas, Europe, Australasia, to the last 2 doses in the series. The incorporation of this quote unquote protein boost is what makes the study truly a global vaccine, says Baroche. The Mosaico team hopes that their vaccine will help to protect at least 65% of the study participants, and they expect to get results by 2023. That was at the time this article was written, which was like last year or 2 years ago. Now more recent articles say by 2024. So
okay, so it's in the works.
Yeah. And then you might be wondering, how is the Mosaico impacted by what happened with the Johnson & Johnson study, since they're similar technologies in the same the same company. In addition to its primary review of the Imbokudo study, the partners, in consultation with an independent data and safety monitoring board, determined that a complementary phase 3 HIV vaccine called Mosaico should continue. So they said it should continue despite what happened with Imbokudo. The clinical trial is testing, well, you already know because I already told you that. So yeah, they're just continuing with it.
Yeah.
Then there's another interesting one called PrEP-Vac. So PrEP-Vac combines the HIV vaccine candidates with the once daily pill called PrEP. We discussed this a little bit earlier, but once again, PrEP is a proven intervention that has been shown to prevent HIV, where an antiretroviral pill is taken prior to HIV exposure. We also did a whole episode explainer on PrEP. Not a whole explainer, but like a 20-minute explainer on PrEP in a previous episode, and I'm going to link that in the show notes. It's called Get a Q-Tip in That Ass and Ho Safely. So yeah. We've always been like this. But more information on, do you have any comments on Mosaico before I move into PrEP-Vac?
So I have a question, and I'm sorry if this is silly, and I will, again, this is coming from my brain, and
no, go for it. I don't think any questions are silly.
Okay. So how are the participants getting HIV afterwards? Because I noticed in the other ones they said that for people who might who got it, they were given antiviral I think, hold on, let me make sure I read that correctly. From the Johnson & Johnson, the original one, the Imbokudo, it says studies were offered pre-exposure prophylaxis. The women who acquired HIV infection were directed to medical care and offered antiretroviral treatment.
So you're asking, despite taking PrEP, how are they still getting HIV?
Yeah, and are they getting it? Are they getting it because they put a strain of the vaccine in it? But that's a dead strain of it, right?
Yeah, they're not getting it. They're not getting it because of the vaccine. Like any of the studies that I'm discussing here, the vaccine has proven to be safe. But all the ones that are ineffective because you can still get HIV.
Got it. So they just
so they're not giving you HIV.
Okay.
With what you're saying and the Johnson & Johnson, I'm not sure like what the statistics are on this, but for the Johnson & Johnson and the Mosaico, people are being offered PrEP, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're taking PrEP.
Got it. Okay.
So there's that, and then you can be offered PrEP and you can take PrEP sometimes, but PrEP you have to take every day. So if you're like failing to take it correctly, like the same thing that happens with condoms, you can still get pregnant, you can still contract an STI. So there's that. And then also, I don't think PrEP is 100% foolproof. So there's also that factor. So myriad of different reasons.
Got it.
Good question leading into this next one, which is PrEP-Vac. So PrEP-Vac combines studying people who are taking one of the HIV vaccine candidates and also people who are taking PrEP. So this is from PrEP-Vac's website. PrEP-Vac is an African-led, European-supported HIV HIV prevention study running in East and Southern Africa from 2018 to projected 2023. For the first time, it is combining evaluation of experimental HIV vaccines and pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP, at the same time. PrEP-Vac is seeking a minimum of 1,668 participants, men and women aged 18 to 40 years. Participants will be from the general and key populations who report behaviors that put them at increased risk of catching HIV or contracting HIV. This may include female bar workers, people living and working around main highways, commercial sex workers, fisher folk, and men who have sex with men.
I never knew any of those demographics were considered, or like populations were considered
high risk.
High risk. I didn't know that, especially like specifically female bar workers or like highways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have
why.
I don't. Probably on their website, but I didn't go to that. But since this is studied on the African continent specifically, I think that like changes things up.
Got it.
In regards to how work is done. Like female bar workers, I can see like, oh, the bar is not making enough. I also have to do some sex work, something like that. I don't really understand the in and around highways. Yeah. The fisher folk, I know like fishermen just like hire sex workers a lot. They hire sex workers. So yeah, I'm not particularly sure, but it's interesting to know that those populations are at greater risk for contracting HIV. So PrEP-Vac is planning to run the clinical trial at 5 sites in 4 countries, those being Masaka, Uganda, Mbeya, Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, Maputo, Mozambique, and Durban, South Africa. The PrEP-Vac project dates are from 2018 to 2023. Like I said, preparation for the vaccine includes a registration cohort whose first participants were enrolled in July 2018. The first participants in the clinical trial enrolled in December 2020. The information collected in this study may help to make a vaccine for HIV and help to make PrEP more widely available in study communities. So now I'm going to talk about the PrEP side of the study. PrEP-Vac will test whether a new form of oral PrEP, TAF/FTC, you might be familiar with this name, the company, what would I call it? Like the brand name. Yeah, the brand name Descovy. Yeah, taken daily. It's testing whether or not it is equivalent or more effective than TDF/FTC, Truvada, which you also might be familiar with.
Yes.
Taken daily. In the context of the current PrEP availability situation at the study sites. The PrEP results of the PrEP-Vac will be valuable for informing future implementation and uptake strategies by local stakeholders and champions in setting where PrEP uptake is low even when accessible, but is likely to be more widely available in the future. Participants enrolled in PrEP-Vac are not obliged to take PrEP, so it's similar to the other ones.
Yeah. Okay.
But they will be encouraged to use it as HIV prevention option, which I think is like also just really important to say in your study and stuff like that, because we do have a long sordid history and there are documented instances of like scientists just being shitty and researchers being shitty, and there's a lot of like shitty things done in the past, and because those shitty things happened, like let's just see experiment, for example, like a lot of what am I looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Like a lot of standards when it comes to like informed consent really like beefed up so that like we can never go back there again. Like these kinds of injustices can never happen again. And so I think it's like very it's good to know that they're not just like, oh yeah, go out there and fuck without any fucking intervention or anything like that, just to see whether or not this vaccine works. Like they're still like, hey, there's a really effective thing. Please take it.
Which is what I was worried about. That's like something I was thinking about. Like you want to get these results. So you're like, I mean, it could be some shady stuff or like even some false promises where it's just like, yeah, this is totally going to protect you. And then it's just like, oh, I don't know. So it's nice that they're also offering different options to say like, please, like actually take this. And we're encouraged to take it. And then like, obviously it's in their hands to do it, but at least you're giving them informed knowledge of what they can do to prevent this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then furthermore, among those who decline taking PrEP-Vac researchers will try to find out what the barriers to acceptance are. Yeah. So I think like, I don't know, I was listening to this podcast called Sawbones, and they were talking about the malaria vaccine, which is also something that has come out recently or is in clinical trials. I don't remember. or got approved. I don't remember. But the host of that podcast is a doctor, and like it's just a difficult situation to be in when you're like, yes, I know that the medical industry and the science industry as an industry is fucked up and has committed these injustices, but as someone who is a doctor and who actually cares, I know that myself and like researchers like are doing this work because they care. And ultimately I feel like I don't know the intentions of the people behind the study who are funding the study, but I think that the people who are the scientists who are actually working are like, we just don't want HIV to keep killing people. So whether it's PrEP or the vaccine, like we just want you we don't want you motherfuckers to die anymore.
So just tell us why like you might not want to
exactly.
take that.
So we can help in any sort of way, whether it be like making this easier accessible or whatever, or maybe it is a once a week pill or something like that as opposed to an everyday pill. Like maybe you don't have access to clean water to swallow your pills, maybe you don't like swallowing pills, like all these kinds of things. Help us help you. Participants will be offered PrEP during the vaccine immunization phase. So that's from week 0 to week 26 in order to prevent HIV. This will give the vaccines the best possible chance of working. Any questions about that before I move on to the vaccine side of the study? Cool. So the vaccine side of the study, PrEP-Vax vaccines trial will test whether 2 experimental combination vaccine regimens can provide any protection against HIV in populations at risk of acquiring HIV. One regimen combines DNA with protein-based vaccine, and the other combines DNA, MVA, and protein-based vaccine. Both have already been evaluated in clinical trials in the US, Europe, and Africa and have demonstrated their safety and ability to induce immune responses. I don't know what those are, though. So I know like on the website, they're aware obviously of the Mosaic or the Mosaico and the Imbokudo ones, but I don't know if that's the same vaccine that they're using. So grain of salt about that. The outcome, and obviously if it is the Imbokudo, they're probably not using it anymore since it's proven not effective. The outcome of PrEP-Vac will tell us whether the regimens can protect against HIV infection. PrEP-Vac is the first HIV vaccine efficacy trial to be funded outside of the United States. PrEP-Vac is complementary to these other efficacy trials as it is evaluating a combination of different vaccine candidates and regimens. The 2 regimens will be trialed in PrEP-Vac have already been evaluated in multiple phase 1 and 2 clinical trials in the US, Europe, and Africa, and have demonstrated their safety and ability to induce immune responses. We do not know whether the combination will work to prevent HIV infection, and the outcome of the large PrEP-Vac study will tell us whether they can or not. If you want more information about what the 2 vaccine combinations are, you can go to their website. It's pretty dense scientific data, so I'm not going to read that. They go on to say it is absolutely not possible to get HIV infections from the vaccines used in this study. 2 of the vaccines contain small pieces of man-made HIV DNA, which is to tell the body to make small amounts of proteins that look like the ones found in HIV. And then it says the names, but I'm not going to read them because I don't think that they're going to mean anything to anybody. The 2 other vaccines are made of, you know what? I will, for the people who like to do their own research. Hello, Kyrie Irving. These are DNA-HIV-PT123 and MVA-CMDR, respectively. The 2 other vaccines are made of man-made proteins, which are similar to proteins from the outer surface of HIV. These are called AIDS Vax and CN54GP140. Sounds like a password.
Yeah, it does. Like a good combination.
To help the body notice and respond to these proteins. They are combined with substances known as adjuvants. There's also a placebo in the PrEP-Vac that does not contain the vaccine. The placebo for the study vaccines will be a sterile liquid called saline, which is salty water used to rehydrate people. And then a little bit about the partners before I move on to the next one. The people behind PrEP-Vac are 80 senior scientists, clinicians, social scientists, community liaison specialists, and professional support roles from 15 partner organizations. They have extensive experience working with HIV and other infectious diseases, as well as clinical trials and specifically carrying out HIV and PrEP trials across Europe and sub-Saharan Africa. Of the 15 partners, 6 are in Africa: Uganda, Mozambique, Tanzania, and South Africa. 6 in Europe, not the Europe, 6 in Europe, UK, Netherlands, Switzerland, Sweden, and Germany. And 3 are based in the US. Funders, PrEPVac is a public-private partnership. The European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership awarded a grant of £15 million for the study, and all of the institutional partners are providing co-funding through staff salaries. Gilead Inc. and Inovio Pharmaceuticals are giving support to the project through materials and medicines. PrEPVac is also supported by USAID and a whole bunch of other things that you can look on their website. But because people care about this band specifically, I will say another one of them is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Any questions about that one?
Not a question, but like, I think it's remarkable that the team is 80 people. And that's it. Like, I'm just like, granted, there are a lot of people behind them donating materials, donating money, all that type of stuff, but it's literally 80 senior scientists, clinicians, social scientists, community liaison specialists, and some professional support roles. And they're like doing big work, and it's just 80 people doing it. I think about teams. I don't know. There's so many things that I know happen, but like, I don't think about the amount of people that are behind it. I always think it's like a huge room with like hundreds of people doing this stuff. So to see the word 80, and they're handling, like, I believe they want how many people, like over 1,500. You said it earlier. Hold on. Yeah.
It's like
so I'm like 60, it's 1668. That's a lot. You know what I mean? Like the ratio to that is just like these people. And that's why earlier on when you're saying, like, especially people who are personally involved with it, and yeah, we can be like anti all of this stuff, but the people who are hands-on and literally taking their time to do this, it's 80 people who are just like, I just want to make the world better. I want to do this, and I want to be hands-on at it. And it's such a small team. And I just think about like funding is being cut for like certain things. And it breaks my heart a little bit.
Yeah. I think about that too. That's a good point. Because I don't know what it takes to make a study like this happen or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and I'm not sure if that's not true, then that's not true. But I think that more than 80 people could probably make this go a lot faster and like better. And things and I just think about all of the resources that are just put into like bullshit,
Yeah.
Like the resources that don't need to be put into anything, but because we live in a capitalist society, it's like, oh, make more products to sell.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, oh, save people's lives. So, yeah. We are Maybe we're not. I really hope that study goes well, and I'm what's happening. All right, let's get into our last contender for today's episode. We're going to talk about Moderna, which is the first HIV vaccine candidate to use mRNA technology. I'm going to read a lot from a Smithsonian article called Moderna to Begin Human Trials for 2 Experimental HIV Vaccines, written by Elizabeth Gamillo. So the article reads, the pharmaceutical and biotech company Moderna could begin human trials for 2 new mRNA-based HIV vaccines as early as September 19th, 2021. There's a lot of different late dates in October, September floating around. So I don't know when they officially started, but it's around this time.
Okay.
According to a study record posted to the United States National Institutes of Health Clinical Trial Registry. The vaccine will use a mechanism similar to the groundbreaking mRNA system in their COVID-19 vaccine, reports Science Alert's Fiona McDonald. The study is expected to take place until May 2023. 2023, a big year for HIV vaccines. Let me tell you.
Excited to be rolling out like, look, 2 years. I'm like, damn, everything's just dropping every month. Like, you did this. It's wild.
Yeah. So for several years, scientists have been researching the effectiveness and potential of mRNA vaccines for cancer treatments and other diseases in animal models. The Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines were the first mRNA vaccines used in humans. And look at that. Half of the population did not drop dead. Which one did you get, Rebecca?
I got the Pfizer,
I got the Pfizer fathers.
Pfizer poppy, Pfizer fathers. Yes.
Yeah. And look at that. Still here to this day. The mRNA vaccines work by giving cells instructions to make bits of the same proteins on a virus's outer shell. The proteins then prime immune cells to recognize and destroy the virus, reports Sarah Kodish for Popular Science.
Shout out to proteins.
Yeah,
they out here holding this down, son.
We are merely proteins at the end of the day. If you want a deeper dive of how mRNA vaccines work, I'm going to include a link in the show notes to an episode of In Those Genes podcast. The episode's called That Rona. It uses music and cultural references to help break down normally dense scientific information, like what the fuck is an mRNA vaccine. Full disclosure, like I said, I do produce In Those Genes podcast, and that particular episode did win an International Audio Award.
Yeah. I'll never get tired of hearing that, son.
What can I say? What can I fucking say? But yes, like the analogy that we use in that episode is like, let's say you're fucking the vaccine is a person who's like letting the bouncer at the club know, like, yo, don't let this motherfucker in.
Yeah,
like, that's the gist of how these work. Researchers suspect multiple vaccines will be needed to generate an immune response strong enough to protect against HIV. HIV is a retrovirus that attacks the body's immune system. It's difficult to prevent because it has a spike-like protein coated in a sugar-like residue that allows it to hide from antibodies when it enters the body, per Samuel Lovett of The Independent. Currently, there is no cure for HIV, only treatments that slow its progression, like antiretrovirals.
Never knew that.
Oh,
the
that
spike-like protein.
Oh, the spike-like
no. The spike-like protein with the sugar-like residue. It's like essentially hiding, like, yo, I'm just sugar over here. Ignore me. And then it's just like, nah. That's
I
crazy.
didn't know that either.
I had no idea.
Creating a vaccine that targets HIV is challenging because the retrovirus becomes a part of the human genome 72 hours after transmission. To prevent infection, high levels of neutralizing antibodies must be present at the time of transmission, as per popular science. Scientists will assess the number of B cells in each study participant. B cells, also known as B lymphocytes, are a type of white blood cell that helps fight bacterial and viral infections. The vaccines are intended to prime B cells that have the potential to produce BNABS, a type of highly potent neutralizing antibody, explains Carrie Youngdahl, a spokesperson for the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative. Past research used a non-mRNA vaccine system, and 90% of participants did develop an immune response. Popular Science reports, though the study was not designed to lead a protective immune response yet, the research did successfully show a purified protein vaccine could stimulate rare B cells in a very specific way. Nice. We and others postulated many years ago that in order to induce BNABS, you must start the process by triggering the right B cells that have special properties, giving them potential to develop into BNAB secreting cells, says William Sheaf, an immunologist at Scripps Research and executive director of vaccine design at IAVI's Neutralizing Antibody Center, in a statement about previous research. In this trial, the targeted cells were only about 1 in a million of all naive B cells. To get the right antibody response, we first need to prime the right B cells. The data from this trial affirms the ability of the vaccine immunogen to do this. Moderna's new mRNA HIV vaccine system could help tackle this issue by priming B cells that have the potential to produce BNABS, Youngdahl explains. The neutralizing antibodies work by targeting the virus's envelope, the outermost layer that protects its genetic material, to keep it from entering cells and infecting them. These antibodies can also target several HIV variants. The trials will test the safety of 2 experimental vaccines. Moderna's mRNA HIV vaccines will be the first of its kind to reach human clinical trials, reports Science Alert. 56 healthy participants between the ages of 18 and 56 who do not have HIV will receive the vaccine, reports The Independent. 4 groups will be part of the experimental trials, with 2 groups receiving a mix of the vaccines and the other 2 receiving only one of the 2 vaccines. All groups will know which type of vaccine they are receiving. Moderna are testing a complicated concept which starts the immune response against HIV, says Robin Shattuck, an immunologist at Imperial College London, to The Independent. It gets you to first base, but it's not a home run. Essentially, we recognize that you need a series of vaccines to induce a response that gives you the breadth needed to neutralize HIV. The mRNA technology may be key to solving the HIV vaccine issue, but it's going to be a multi-year process. And that is where we're at with that one. Any thoughts or comments?
Niggas is learning up in here.
It's good to learn.
Niggas is learning up in here. So
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting here like there's so many, like I've addressed it as we're going through it, but like there's so many things I just didn't know. And now it's like, you know, I'm seeing these studies that are tackling different ways. Like, okay, we know how it gets into our bodies. We know that it sneaks in, it wreaks havoc. The immune system has no idea what it's doing here. So we're like, all right, we're gonna try and find a way to bolster the immune system by prepping it, and then we're gonna sit here and we're gonna take off the envelope off of it to be like, look, you ain't sugar, we can see you. Like, it's so many different ways that it's like we're trying to make sure, because it's gonna take work, and clearly it's been taking work. It's taken hundreds of studies and vaccines that like are doing this, and they're still trying, and they're still trying to attack this from any angle that they can, because this is obviously something that affects people in an extremely major way. And I'm grateful for like scientists and science in general that just keeps trying to do things that like we just don't want to be stuck with these things and have to accept them for what they are. And it's like, let's get that, see moments like this, it's just like, okay, like granted we haven't gotten there, but it's just like I like to read and know that we're making progress and we're trying our best, and always just like not taking the things that we are given and saying, all right, fuck it, well, it is what it is. It's like, nah, man, I know what you did, I know what it looks like, I'm gonna figure out how to get you back. And like, you know, I'm ready for 2023, because that's the year where it's like maybe some things are groundbreaking and we're gonna find out, like, you know, all of the stuff that goes into it. And those, shout out to those 80 people who are out there running that other trial. I hope, you know, we find something good. But yeah, this is kind of awesome. I just appreciate you for reading all that and doing a research. But I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm just like, I didn't even know I have this stuff. So yes,
me neither, man. Me fucking neither. When I like, because I'll like do a cursory glance over articles and things like that to figure out what to talk about on the show. And I just thought there was like one happening right now. And I felt so ignorant being like, no, bitch, there's fucking 5 at the moment. Okay. This Johnson & Johnson one just ended. Like, but there's a lot. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. And I think it's really, because sometimes you're just like, all right, it's 2021 and all we have is fucking iPhones. Like, where are the flying cars and all that?
Yeah, bullshit, exactly. Like, and it's like,
but we have like this mRNA technology for the COVID vaccine, and that's the first of its time. And it's like literally saving people's life in real, like that shit is like, I feel a part of history. Like I got that shit. Like, yeah, and exactly. It's like the first, and it's super effective and things like that. And I think that the work that was done on getting that up to speed when it comes to COVID-19 and all of the work that's been done behind it is also like informing how this Moderna trial for HIV is going to go. So it's just like science building off of science. And I think that that's super cool, and probably similar with the malaria vaccine, but I don't know enough about that to actually say anything. So yeah. All right. Well, I hope you folks enjoyed that fucking episode.
I hope it didn't make you laugh, though. I'm not gonna lie, because you know,
some funny. We started off with PLIES being a fake nurse.
I forgot. I was about to say, wait, let's not. There was something funny in the middle, but yeah, no. Yeah,
PLIES being a fucking fake nurse. Well, yeah. So if this episode made you laugh, helped you learn something, made you feel good, made you question yourself in a good way, or positively moved you in any sense, please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, and let everyone you know that you love these hoes. We appreciate every single last one of you. Thank you for listening.
For sure. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can do so at Uprising without the G on Twitter, Uprising on Instagram and Facebook. And you can head to InnerHoeUprising.com to pay a hoe or to cop some merch. You can follow me, Rodeka, at The Darkest Timeline on Instagram, and Fat Black Snack on Instagram as my Finstagram. So yeah.
You can follow me at SamRid on Instagram and Twitter. Have a lovely motherfucking week that is informed with real information.
Yes.
Kyrie. Because you motherfucking deserve to. Bye.
Bye.